Pre-calculus, we are still in Unit 6, obviously, and we are going to be discussing Topic 2, which is the even and odd identities and functions. And if you'll recall from our parent functions that we discussed at the beginning of the year, we talked about them being even and odd. So we're going to do the same thing for our trig functions. So the first thing we need to remember is what makes a function even or odd. So remember, if it's even, that means there is y-axis symmetry. And algebraically, that means that f of x is equal to f of negative x. And then, of course, if it's odd, let's change colors here because it's fun. If it's odd, that means we have origin symmetry. And algebraically, that means f of negative x equals negative f of x. All right, so as far as our trigonometric even and odd identities, there are two that are even. So there are two of them that have y-axis symmetry, and those are going to be cosine and, of course, its reciprocal secant. If I could spell secant or write secant. Anyway, all right, so having said that, algebraically what this would look like is this right here. So cosine of x equals cosine of negative x, and secant of x equals secant of negative x. So that's what that means algebraically. All right, so our odd functions are going to be all of the others. So we have sine, we have cosecant. Again, I'm having trouble spelling things. So we have cosecant, we have tangent, and we have cotangent. All right, and algebraically what those would look like, we're going to have sine of negative x equals negative sine x. Cosecant negative x equals negative cosecant x. Tangent of negative x equals negative tangent x. You've probably picked up on this so far. And cotangent negative x equals negative cotangent x. So we're going to use these algebraic setups to answer the questions in the examples that follow. So if you will scroll down here with me, I'm going to switch colors because it's fun. All right, so our very first example, we have sine t equal to 1/2, and we want to know what sine of negative t is going to equal. Well, we're dealing with sine, so that means that we're going to use this right up here. So I know that sine of negative x equals negative sine of x. But if you'll notice, I've been given a positive here. So let's change, I'm going to actually change these to t's because that's what we have in the problem. Okay, so I know what the sine of positive t is. It's 1/2, and I want the sine of negative t. So if I can fill this in, then I can just transfer it into the blank here. So let's talk about what this means. All right, so if you'll notice, if I've got sine t, this right here, that's this without the negative. So what I can do is I can replace sine of t with 1/2. So I'll just put 1/2 in here. The negative's already there. So guess what sine of negative t equals? It equals negative 1/2. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, let's look at the next one. For this one, I'm again given sine of positive t, which I don't have, that's not how my identity is set up, but that's okay because what I want is cosecant of negative t. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is, since I need the reciprocal of sine, I'm going to find the cosecant of positive t, which would be the reciprocal of sine of positive t. So that's going to be 3/2. That's where I'm going to start. Now I can use this identity right here. I know that cosecant of negative t, which is what I want, is equal to negative cosecant of t. Well, I'm going to do the same exact thing I did in the last problem. Cosecant t, I know what that is. It's 3/2. So I am just going to replace that in my equation with 3/2. And then, of course, the negative's already there. So cosecant of negative t is negative 3/2. Excellent. Okay, let's look at the next one. So number 3, we have cosine of negative t equals negative 1/3. Well, if you'll look up here in the identity, cosine of negative x equals cosine of positive x. So I know that cosine of negative t is the same thing as cosine of positive t. So that means that cosine of positive t is also negative 1/3. I want the reciprocal of cosine t, which is secant t. So all I have to do is use the reciprocal of negative 1/3, and that's going to give me negative 3. And remember that when you're finding the reciprocal is independent of the sign. So if your original problem is a negative, your reciprocal will still also be a negative, because reciprocal just means you take that fraction and flip it over. All right, so let's look at our last problem. We have cosine t is equal to negative 2/5, and I want cosine of negative t. Well, I'm going to use this identity again, easy peasy. If I've got cosine t, I already have cosine of negative t because they're equal to each other. So this is going to be exactly the same. Neato speedo.